Welcome, everyone. My name is Barb Wild. I am Good Wine Gal, recording here in Vancouver. And with us today, we have the fantastic, effervescent, and extremely humble Michal Mosny, who is the winemaker at Winemaker's Cut.
Hello, everybody.
Yes, welcome. Great to see you, Michal. This will be Michal's third time with Good Wine Gal. We started during COVID, and we just keep on keeping on. So I met Michal in 2015 when I was at Liberty Wine Merchants Park Royal, and ever since then, his wines have just been impressive, delicious. Some of them drink now and some of them age worthy and drink later, but most of the time I can't do the drink later part. Bottles just don't survive. But anyway, I want to say thank you for joining us today, Michal. We have a slide presentation. I'm going to start the share. We do have a chat to the right-hand side. If you have any questions, please use the chat. Please post your questions there. You click the chat button in the bottom and it gives you the options to post questions, see who's in the room. You can chat with each other. It's kind of a cool tool. And what else can I tell you? On y va, should we go? Everybody ready? Woohoo! Let us start the share.
It's like we did lose some people to the sunshine, but I'll monitor and let them in if they decide to come out of the lake and join us.
Yes, we hope they come out of the lake and we hope they join us. And I have a bit of a slow, here we go. I have a bit of a slow start on this one. I'm going to hide the controls, hide them.
What time of year are we looking at here, Barb and Michal? It's also lush. Must be summer. Is that a summer day?
Yes, that's like summer, but I think it was the year when it was kind of foggy or even a little smoky when we took this picture. But actually, when you take pictures and there is fires in the Okanagan, the exposure is just beautiful. I don't get it, So of course we don't like the smoke there, but you can really take really beautiful pictures.
And this is at your vineyard?
Yes, it is Dead Man Lake Vineyard south of Oliver. Between road 20 and 21 on the western side of the highway. So
we have this lovely map for you to express. Yeah.
But I wanted to start by introducing myself for those who don't know me yet. So my name is Michal Mosny. I'm the owner and winemaker of Winemaker's Cut, a winery that we established in 2015 in Oliver in Okanagan. I'm originally from Slovakia. Probably from my accent that it's not a Canadian or American accent or New Zealand accent, not even French. Yeah, it's Eastern European accent. And we came here with my wife in 2012 to Canada. And in 2015, we opened our winery, something that we never even dreamed of doing because, when we landed in Canada and we saw the prices of everything, we were like, oh, this is crazy. We are not going to survive here and 1 month, and now this is our 11th year and we are here fighting our way to present our style of winemaking, our Winemaker's Cut, basically. So just to give you a little brief introduction, Winemaker's Cut, we started in 2015. And before I used to work for other wineries and even consulting for other wineries and vineyards especially. And then we decided to open Winemaker's Cut, and the name we have chosen because Winemaker's Cut spoke to us just like director's cut. When director makes his own movie, it's not the movie that he makes for the public or for theaters or production companies. He makes it only for people that really care about what he wants to say, and he wants to do something, show something personal in his edit. So he calls it director's cut, and that's exactly how I felt when we started Winemaker's Cut. I wanted to make something that is really deep personal for me. And it's on my version and my vision of how to make Okanagan wine. So basically, we wanted to capture three main things in our winemaking. First of all is sustainable vineyards, because I noticed, right away, Okanagan is a non-polluted country. It's a beautiful region where there are no factories around, very, very little pollution. So to produce natural, sustainable grapes is almost many years, it's really easy. Second thing that we wanted to capture is traditional winemaking. So just like being natural in a vineyard, we want to be as natural as possible in winemaking. And the third most important part is that that we would like to showcase us or our belief in life, not only in wine. It's the classical music. But I will talk about classical music a little later.
Yes, please.
So in 2015, we leased a beautiful land that you see over here. It's called Dead Man Lake Vineyard. It's actually located on Stevens Farm. So it's a farm in Okanagan that is there since 1920s. But the owners of the farm, Stevens family, they were always mostly into growing cherries, peaches, and so on. And they never really went into vineyard. Then they planted some vineyard, but they didn't want to take care of it. So I was there at the right time when I told them I'm going to take over. And they were super happy and excited about it. They also leased me a small production facility. And the estate vineyard is now planted with 2 blocks of Syrah, Cabernet Franc, Sauvignon Blanc, and even some small blocks of, I call it a research project. I planted some varietals that are not typical for Okanagan. For example, Gruner Veltliner, Welsh Riesling, some varietals that are pretty new, also in Europe, but we planted them and we wanted to see what's going on there. And I have to tell you, like, this last winter was really cold in Okanagan. It was very, there was a lot of frost damage in the vineyards. So when we were pruning these new tiny plants that we brought from Slovakia, I almost knew 100% that they are going to die. But when we pruned them, nothing in the valley is so alive than these varietals. So our research project is successful.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, I think, especially for winters like this, you have to bring varietals from regions that are really cool climate,
Yeah.
Because if you bring it from France, from the nurseries in France, well, most of them are from regions that are like, the climate is much warmer than over here.
Right.
I think that's what we should focus on more in the future.
Well, I think it's great to have an experimental project. And I also think it's great to be looking at varietals that might not be here yet, because I don't know that we have an identity for varietals in the Okanagan, really. Like, it's not like we're Burgundy and it's either Pinot Noir or Chardonnay. So
completely agree with you. Completely agree.
Yeah.
So this is the Dead Man Lake Vineyard. There's a picture over here. You can see in the back the lake, which is called Dead Man Lake. It's a very shallow lake, and especially in summer months when it's too warm and the water evaporates and you can see almost white spots on the surface. And that's the confirmation, that's the proof that the minerality compound, the sulfur compound in the area, is very strong. So you can see also the composition of the soil on this picture. It's a dark brown Chernozem soil, which is also very, very unique to the Okanagan. But to me, coming from Okanagan, from Slovakia, Slovakia has Chernozem almost everywhere. So that was the main thing why I picked this vineyard, and I really wanted to have it because it really reminds me on my roots. So the soil is dark brown Chernozem mixed with shale. So the minerality is really, really high, and that transforms also into our wines.
Do you think this is a common type of soil in the Okanagan?
There are vineyards that have dark brown Chernozem soil, but not many. I would say maybe 5% of all the area you can find some spots in vineyards where there is this kind of soil.
It looks rich. It looks, this deep dark brown color, lots of plant matter and animal decomposing matter or whatever in it. It doesn't look what people say, oh, grapes grow in the poorest soils. This doesn't look very poor. This looks actually.
This is very fertile soil. Like the humidity, the moisture in this soil is even evident in the like really, really dry summer months. Like sometimes it's like 40 degrees for 3 weeks in a row, and I come into vineyard with a shovel and I dig a little bit, and the soil is still moist. So that's beautiful.
That is about something sustainable.
Yep, absolutely.
Yes. Okay, shall I move on to the next slide? Was
Yes.
there some other? Okay, next slide. So there we go. Music.
Yes. So that's the other part that we are trying to add to our wines. And we would like to, wine for us, it's not only, just the product that we would like to sell or, have a beautiful label and pour it. It's really something that, it's really connected to our life. So if we wanted to add some identity to our wines, we definitely need to add ourselves into wine. So when I'm a classical trained musician, so I played violins when I was younger. And me and my wife, I always loved classical music. So it reminds me when we were working in our own vineyard back home in Slovakia, sometimes we rushed back home to get dressed and go to see some opera or some concerto, either in Bratislava or in Vienna. And then we also tried to play classical music in our own vineyard back home. And that's what we brought here with us here. Because I really believe on the effects of classical music on wines in the vineyard and also wines in the cellar. Because the moment we started doing it, I saw a complete difference in the quality of the wines and the growth in the vineyard and basically the whole energy. You are actually, it's kind of like, even when you have people working in the vineyard, they feel much better, Working in the vineyard can be very repetitive things. There is so much work that you have to do over and over with each plant. And then when you, for example, you're listening to some beautiful, relaxing classical music, like it really makes a complete difference. And this energy always transforms into the work that we are doing, and that translates also into product that we are producing. So in the estate vineyard, we have 13 speakers now installed, which was a big project because
I bet it was.
Nobody wanted to do it for us. Everybody was like, "Are you crazy? Like, what do you want to do?"
Yeah.
People here, or the musicians, or the technicians, they like to put sound system on the stage and not in the vineyard. So we had to do everything by ourselves, and basically about 4 to 6 hours a day during the growing season, we are playing mostly Mozart and Bach in the vineyard. And then when we start harvesting grapes, we want to put some stories into each wine. So we play mostly operas, and then of course the classical music plays also in the cellar when the reds or even white in the barrel are aging. So I hope you will see the difference, just like I do.
I think classical music in the vineyard and the winery was unique for me to discover that you had that signature. And I would say that's kind of what I noticed in the wines is I wrote about it in my blog, but this vibrancy that seems to, there's a number of other things. The soil's healthy and you're using fairly, low intervention practices. I don't know if you actually call it organic, but there's a bunch of things going on here that are completely unique, and it shows up in the wine. I think minerality, vibrancy.
Yeah. Definitely. Like I can see the difference even in like the fermentation kinetics. Talking about winemaking, now here we are. One fact is that I was brought up to make wine by using only what's in the vineyard or in the cellar. So not bring winemaking yeast and finding agents, enzymes into your cellar. Really just do it only with what the nature gives you. And that's what I'm trying to do also here, by adding also classical music into, for example, the fermentation process. The fermentation kinetics are much smoother. I don't have a really proof about it, but it happened to me once when a guy was helping me and he turned the music off, and I came to the winery the next day and the fermentation was stuck. It stopped fermenting. And they're like, well, why did you turn on the music off? The yeast is a microorganism. It's alive. It has a feeling, and it feels that there was this classical music there. And ever since then, like we play nonstop classical music during the fermentation stage, and I never ever had any tank go stuck fermentation. Never.
That's amazing. I think it's just such a lovely point. Like there's energy in everything.
Absolutely. Definitely.
Even though humans may look at yeast and think it's, got sole purpose and there isn't much going on there. That's amazing.
And we had many people, even in the tasting room, mostly younger generation coming and saying, oh, I don't really like classical music. And I'm telling them like, no, you do. You don't even know about it. Almost every single Hollywood movie has classical music as, the soundtrack. Almost everyone. So, and then they admitted, oh, actually, you are right. Like it's in almost every movie. And that's classical music.
You're mentoring.
No, I'll try.
I like it.
My best.
Uh,
Go ahead.
No, were there any other, this is a picture of barrels,
Yep.
barrel fermentation. There's a little ox above, which is where the bubbling of the barrel comes out. I don't know, has anybody been in a winery to look at barrels and see the bubbling and they understand what that's about? Fermentation is live and it gives off CO2 and
Yes, CO2 and heat and temperature, exactly.
yeah.
So you see barrels, this is actually our typical Slovakian barrel that we are using in
Okay.
winemaking. Mostly reds are aging in barrels in
Right.
our winery, and then some of the whites are also fermenting in barrels.
So the tradition of Slovakian oak is a signature too, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, there is actually a long tradition in making oak barrels even in Slovakia, and actually in many European countries, but every country is making only enough to supply the local wine industry.
Yeah.
So not many barrels are exported. Of course, the most exported wine barrels are from France or Italy or
Yeah.
the United States.
Do you think there'll be Canadian oak barrels at some
There
point?
was actually a cooperage here in Okanagan when I arrived in 2012. I think it was the time when they also stopped producing and they were not doing it anymore because there was not big of an interest, which I think is a big shame because that's also the identity of Okanagan.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Shall I advance the slide?
Yes, please. Yes, I like to talk too much, so you have to stop me.
No. All right. So if you don't know this, there is a tasting room, Winemaker's tasting room at the District Wine Village, which is in Oliver. And if you haven't been, this is a very worthy adventure for a full day because there are 13 tasting rooms. Well, 13 rooms and live music and lots of outdoor space to sit and enjoy and food and pacing yourself and just really soaking up, I think, a very big intersection kind of in the Okanagan that might define north and south. I'm not really quite sure about that, but it's a very distinctive place because of the bluff that sits right there too.
Yep.
So anyway, yes, so you want to tell us about your adventure and how it's going for you at District Wine Village?
Absolutely. So you are right. I completely agree with you because I think District Wine Village located north of Oliver, it's kind of a gate to South Okanagan, so you come to Okanagan and sorry for my expression, but you can have a little bit of fun in Naramata, Kelowna, Penticton and so on. But when you enter the South Okanagan, when you enter District Wine Village and continue towards Oliver and Soyuz, that's when you realize this is the serious wine region with the serious big reds. And that's how I feel also about the village. So I was really happy when they started building it. It was actually the year when we also wanted to build our tasting room at Dead Man Lake Vineyard, but it was also the year when pandemic started, so when I had my architectural plans and a week after they shut down all the airports, I thought well, we are going to go bankrupt, all of us. I'm not going to build a tasting room now. And I was driving by this construction site that turned out to be District Wine Village. I stopped by and the people that started doing it, they didn't have almost anyone interested in opening a tasting room there because again, pandemic started. So, but I told them you know what, guys, I'm going to support you. I'm going to join the village. And I think that was one of the best moves we did because this is really a spotlight, or this is really a big attraction for the Okanagan. At the beginning, people thought that this is going to be just very kind of a gimmicky set of wineries, but the actual opening of the village showed that pretty much only serious wineries are there, with people with experience, people with tons of experience and career traction in Okanagan open the wineries there. And then one Slovakian crazy guy, of course,
and the crazy Slovakian that survived COVID,
yeah,
3 years of pandemic,
yeah.
It's not easy being a winemaker and farmer in the Okanagan Valley, or any valley for that matter, but certainly a pioneer here.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Shall
So
I
and
advance?
the village is open all year around,
Yeah.
7 days a week.
It's-
Maybe winter time only 5 days. Now they purchased the skating rink that will be in the center. So I think pretty soon the village will be open like 7 days a week all year round.
They have a fire pit, so in the fall and the winter, I mean, it's very welcoming. It's a bit I don't want to say it's in the middle of nowhere. It's about 10 minutes from Okanagan Falls.
Yes.
Okanagan Falls being to the north, so it's not way out of the way. And if you're staying in Penticton, it's just such an easy get to place. So, and it does, honor. It's kind of an homage also to First Nations, because those are the folks behind it, which I think is a lovely intersection of wine and conversation, just around diversity and inclusion. So,
Yeah, it's located on First Nation land, so we should not expect many liquor inspectors there.
Thank God. Did I say that out loud? All right. So please visit the tasting room, because they're waiting for you. And I went there when I knew that Michael and I were doing this. It just coincidentally, we're both busy and I hadn't tasted the wines yet, and I needed to decide what we would offer. So I popped in and had a lovely tasting and selected, the wines that we have in the offer, which is 6 bottles, including the Rosé and the Sauvignon Blanc, which are new releases, the 2 Q&A wines, and then the Cab Franc and the Petit Verdot from the fall release. So just fantastic wines and a lovely experience. And there's always something going on, not only at District Wine Village, but in your tasting room, Michael. There was like this huge party of people, and yeah, it was great. We love it.
Well, we try to make it welcoming for everyone, of course.
Yeah, and to tell your story. Shall I advance the slide?
Yes, please.
There
There
we
we
go. Does anybody have this wine?
So
This
this is
is
a brand new release,
Yeah.
2022 Rosé. So actually, I think we started selling it in our tasting room only a couple days ago. So this is kind of almost like a pre-release for you. Every year our rosé is very, very pale in color. It's a Cabernet Franc, 100% Cabernet Franc rosé. This year it's coming from 2 vineyards, because we are also expanding our production a little bit. So it's coming from, the grapes are from our estate vineyard, Deadman Lake Vineyard, and from Gill Vineyard, which is located really close by our estate. Both of these vineyards are east facing and a little bit sloped. So we are harvesting only the highest elevation rows of the vineyard, which is naturally like lower water in the soil. So the berries are smaller, but a lot of concentrated flavors. And that's what we try to achieve also with this wine, is really by using only organic yeast to really highlight the fruitier part of a Cabernet Franc rosé.
It's delicious. If you haven't tasted this, I don't know, does it say pink grapefruit here? It does say pink grapefruit and watermelon. I'm like the pink grapefruit girl. Like, if it tastes like, you've got me. So it's just delicious. That's not the only flavor. It's quite complex and fairly concentrated. And it's not a playful, watery rosé. This is a food wine. This is a delicious, balanced perfection. I think you could do either, sit on the patio and drink it on its own, or have a nice dinner. So
it is a very dangerous wine, especially for
dangerous.
our household, because ever since we released it, like we always have like 1 case in our fridge, because like every day, like you're like, what am I going to drink? Like, oh, bottle of rosé, there you go.
And it's interesting that rosé has just skyrocketed in the last decade, and so timely, and certainly, is it one of the larger production items that you?
Yes, so our rosé and Sauvignon Blanc are our larger production items for sure, and not because we wanted to, but because people every year asked for more and more, and that's why we naturally increased production.
Yeah, no, I think it's delicious. I love the label. Very distinctive. The color's perfect. Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, shall we move along?
Yes.
I like that too. Stainless steel. Who's got that?
Just showing in real life.
Nice.
I'm getting thirsty now. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So next we have the 2022, so new release again, Sauvignon Blanc, and I have to say, oh my goodness, this is a stunner. The
Sauvignon
aromas
Blanc,
are incredible.
the first one of the first wines we started producing. So actually, when we started Winemakers Cadma, our goal was to produce only 2 or 3 wines, only the varietals that we have in the vineyard, so Sauvignon Blanc, Cabernet Franc, and Syrah. But then things got a little bit out of hand, and I got to know these, crazy, beautiful, and amazing vineyards. And when you have a winemaker that falls in love with a vineyard, then the sales team has to be worried about what's going to happen. But unfortunately, sales team in our winery is also me, so I have to be worried, and I have to sell, produce the wine, and then also sell it too. But thanks to our customers, like it's really, really easy. It has been really easy so far. So Sauvignon Blanc, it's a varietal that I never actually worked with in Eastern Europe and Slovakia. So when I came here and I had the chance to make a Sauvignon Blanc, I was like, well, this is absolutely a dream coming true. So, and the vineyard and the Sauvignon Blanc from a vineyard with high minerality, dark brown soil, and actually a east-facing vineyard. It's also about 50% of this Sauvignon Blanc is from our estate vineyard, and 50% is from Panorama Vineyard located north of Oliver. Also east-facing, also below a hillside. And this is the secret of this Sauvignon Blanc, that the vineyard location is so that every day in the summer you get like the earlier afternoon shade, and this shade helps to retain the green, grassier aromas in Sauvignon Blanc. Because Sauvignon Blanc, I think it's a little bit underrated varietal. Many wineries try to make it just very simple, or even in oak. But there is so many things that you can do in the vineyard, and that can change the flavor profile of this wine. And that's why we like this varietal so much. So about 20% of this wine is fermented in oak, in Slovakian oak, neutral. So you don't taste the oak influence at all. Some of it is wild fermented, especially the very, very clear juice. And then some of it is fermented using organic yeast, and then we just blend everything together. The only sulfur addition in this wine is basically after the alcoholic fermentation, so the main fermentation, and then the second sulfur addition is just before bottling. So even the total sulfur in this wine, just like any other wines, is like way below organic limits. So don't worry to finish even a whole bottle, because it's 11.5% alcohol. I want to emphasize that.
Yeah. Amazing balance. Is that what you've got, Donna? Do you have the Sauvignon Blanc? No.
I ordered the Sauv Blanc in my shipment, but I don't have it yet.
Okay.
I'm waiting.
All right. You'll be excited when it arrives.
I will.
I think it's also a lovely wine that pairs well with, the fish dishes that you're recommending, scallops, prawns, halibut. Yeah.
And it has a very, very pale color, but again, we are not focusing on color, we are focusing on the flavors, and with the natural style of winemaking, you can never really expect a certain color. It's not like me working for other clients, winery owners, when they tell me, oh, copy this, make this color, like, Jesus, guys, like, you're not supposed to do it this way,
Yeah, you're chasing quality, you're chasing,
marketing
what the
over
fruit can provide you,
Yep.
and then explaining what that is in the bottle.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so beautiful wine, great price. Can't recommend it enough. So this is fabulous. Tell me, was 2022 then a surprise vintage for you?
23, yeah, that was the surprise vintage, yeah. It started really slow, a very, very cold spring up until like mid-July, and then everything turned completely opposite. It was quite warm. Even in September, many winemakers were stressing out. I'm like, no, this is perfect. Lower alcohol wines is the trend everywhere in the world now.
Yeah.
And it never disappointed me.
Yeah. And you had an abundant yield, didn't you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like there was a lot of crying, and we called it January. I don't know if everybody remembers, but June was rainy and cold, and people were crying, and like, we're already 3 weeks behind, and and then we had this very long, warm September and October,
I always try to remind my friends winemakers here that when we are crying about one vintage, in Okanagan, there is 9 out of 10 vintages that are absolutely amazing. In Europe, there is 1 out of 10 vintages that is absolutely amazing. So I think
Excellent.
we are very fortunate to be in such an area that we can produce amazing wines every year.
Well, we're very fortunate to have your perspective, because that's the perspective that's like the optimist in you, and making now the optimist in us, that actually we do have something to, to brag about. Like,
By the way, I have to drink a lot of wine to have this opportunity.
yeah. All right. So I think I've shown my bottle before, but we've got it up on the slide. Tell us about the collaboration, and then, yay, we have a white too.
Yes, so Q&A, as I mentioned at the beginning, the reason why I came actually here to Okanagan and to Canada, and the way how I discovered this wine region is because of a TV show that was aired on Travel Channel around the world, and it was called Hollywood and Wines TV by Terry David Mulligan and Jason Priestley. So we used to watch this show because it was a lot of fun, and they were always traveling different wine regions with celebrities, Hollywood celebrities, and that time it was like probably the only connection of us with the world of wine. But then one time we saw this episode when they were in Okanagan. I remember Jason was doing jet skiing, and they was drinking wine on the beach, and we couldn't believe that this is actually Canada, because most people in the world, they think of Canada, ice hockey, ice wine, and that's it. But nobody knew, and nobody knows, even not many people know even now, that there is a desert in Canada. So we investigated a little further, and in 2012, in April, we landed in Okanagan with 4 suitcases, and actually we never left Okanagan because we loved it here so much. And just before pandemic, I was pouring my wine on a wine festival in Victoria, and Terry David Mulligan, as a broadcaster, he walked by and he stopped by and he was like, well, who are you? I'm buying your wine for many years and I love your wines. Like, I never met you. Like, who are you? And I explained Terry how I actually discovered Okanagan because of his show, and he completely loved it. And then again, pandemic came and everybody was sitting at home. So Terry introduced me with Jason over Zoom, and we were chatting, drinking wine. And then one time we had this idea, like to put this beautiful story, how we discovered Okanagan, into a bottle. And that's how Q&A started. So Q&A stands for questions and answers. And that's basically, with this wine, the whole story, it's always tons of questions and tons of answers. So we wanted to do 2 very special wines to celebrate this cooperation and to basically celebrate life, destiny. So we produced a red Bordeaux blend, and then this very lately, like about a month ago, we also released a white, which is a very unique Rhone blend, Roussanne Marsanne Viognier, from a single vineyard in Osuyus on the western side. I think it's just a gorgeous wine. This is a little bit different than all the wines from Winemaker's Cut portfolio. It's kind of a Chardonnay wine, but not Chardonnay. you know what I mean? Each varietal was picked differently. The Marsanne was picked first and was 100% barrel fermented, 8% new. Roussanne was picked second, and it was the only varietal that went through full malolactic fermentation. And the Viognier was picked at the last, and that went through spontaneous fermentation. We blended everything together for 12 months in a barrel, with twice a month bâtonnage, steering the lees to get a little bit more body and creaminess. And we have here a Rhone style blend at only 12.5% alcohol. And I think you would never guess that such a rich wine is in such a medium alcohol level.
I think it speaks to how you manage each of those varietals and their character that comes together in the blend. And I think a great comparison, if anybody's interested in, what's a classic style. I mean, this is very good. Like, this reminds me why I love Rhone. And Rhone varieties are not that common in the Okanagan. Again, we're chasing Chardonnay and maybe Sauvignon Blanc, mostly Riesling and Gewürztraminer. So to find, Roussanne, Marsanne, even Viognier is not that common, even though there's quite a few, I would say quite a few. There's a few people trying to do it and a few people do it well. So, are you growing Marsanne, Roussanne?
So
Or how did you come across these varieties?
Oh, I know a lot of growers in South Okanagan,
Right.
and this is coming from a vineyard. Like now, the new owners call it PRM, but the old owner was Rob Webster, a very, very good grower. He planted this vineyard actually because he tasted some wine back in the days from California, and he completely loved it, and he didn't even know the varietals. But then he just looked at the label and said, like, I'm going to plant these varietals in my vineyard. It's a beautiful, organically farmed vineyard with no hedging. So we never hedge the shoots, in the vineyard. We always bend them, and that retains the acidity, and that also controls the sugar level in the berries. So it's never too hot, never too high in sugar. But then it retains the acidity remains also much more stable in the bottle. We cannot hear you, Barb.
Oh, very good concentration of flavor.
Yeah.
And the finish is long, like, I don't know how many points you'll get for this, but like, I'll give you 92.
So far we got 92 from Chris Waters from Golden Mail.
Oh.
And he was all over this wine. He completely loved it. So
Oh my God, it's so surprising and it's so well done. So,
awesome. Perfect.
Great. And I'm so delighted because Q&A was the Lone Ranger for a little bit. And I was like, how's that going to go? Like, it'll go because it's red, but you need a mate.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. And well done on the alcohol. Super balanced.
Yep.
It's just delicious. And we say ABC, anything but Chardonnay. People really don't want Chardonnay. This is as good as it gets as a, an option for your friends who don't like Chardonnay.
This is a great name.
This and Chardonnay? Can we drink both?
No, Cassandra.
Can't we have this and a bottle of Chardonnay?
Well, you can have whatever you like.
I mean, not mixed together.
I said for your friend who says anything but Chardonnay. Yeah, you can have whatever you like. What are you drinking? That please tell us.
I'm having a San Pellegrino, just keeping my hydration up.
You were showing me something to get. What was that called? She's got
some weird thing I was sent as a blogger mail. Wine health boost. It's like grape concentrate. You spray in a glass of water. I highly recommend just opening a bottle of wine and pouring yourself.
That's the best health formula I know.
Yeah. This is alcohol free, another deterrent for me.
All right, shall we, any questions about the winemaking? No, we'll move along.
Nothing's popped up in the chat. But...
It is delicious. And then this fabulous bad boy. I don't know, bad boy's a bad word, but.
So this is Q&A Red Cuvée. This is actually the first wine that we decided to make with Terry and Jason. It's as the slide shows, like it's 45% Cabernet Sauvignon. So this is the Cabernet Sauvignon based Bordeaux varietal. And some might think that, of course, Jason from America, from California, of course, he will like more Cabernet Sauvignon based blends. But we never really focused on having this wine being Cabernet Sauvignon dominant. But we tried many different samples before we did the blend, and this one was probably the best. Not probably, it was definitely the best. So the grapes are grown in two different vineyards. Quail's Wayside Vineyard, located west of Oliver on Ferry Road, and that's the Cabernet Sauvignon and Cabernet Franc. Both of these varietals were fermented using organic yeast, and then Merlot and Petit Verdot are from Chahal Vineyard, north of Oliver, fermented spontaneously. The wine aged for 11 months in different types of oak. You can see the oak regime here on this slide. So a little more sophisticated, a little more focused wine, but it's bottled unfied and unfiltered. And yeah, I think this is definitely the best wine I ever made in my whole career.
Well, it's very smooth. I thought fine grain tannins. I thought the flavors were very harmonious. Like it was really, you couldn't just say, well, there's the Cab and there's the Merlot. It was quite melded. I think
that's what I get when I'm tasting Bordeaux blends. You know, you can never really say like, what's the varietal composition? You cannot find it on the label. You cannot you cannot see it in the glass. You know, so it's like, okay, let's make something like something similar.
Yeah, fabulous. Has anyone tried it? Anyone? Nope, not yet. Okay, well, it's soon to try, right?
Definitely specialty wines for special occasions, which is every day, right?
And it will age, right? We were talking a little bit about there's drink now and then there's age. I would say the RMB is an age-worthy style. And I think that's what's just going to get better and better in the bottle. Like, wow, that's an amazing. And then the Q&A red, I mean, you're what, 5 to 7 years or maybe
Easily.
more.
Easily, 5 to 7 years plus. And then, you know, then we are very, very fortunate because I generally don't send my wines for reviews too often. But we did the Q&A, and that Q&A red received between 91 and 94 points from different very high respected wine reviewers in Canada.
Awesome. Well, congrats. I
Thank
mean, you know, these are scary initiatives because you just don't know. And but you're an expert, and so you have the ability to, you know, look at there's 4 different kinds of barrels. Who would think to, you know, I don't know how to make wine, so I would be like, I mean, I technically probably could tell you basic things, but the art of picking the barrel, type of barrels, what percentage, you know, it's all very skillful and it's all on purpose. So it's not by accident that good wine happens. This is Petit Verdot, and this was quite a surprise. I'm delighted to see that BC could challenge Australia with a bottle that is, well, yours is 100%, right? 100% Petit Verdot?
100% Petit Verdot and 100% super ripe Petit Verdot, which is very, very hard to do in Okanagan, not only in Okanagan, even in Bordeaux. So
very uncommon.
That's why you very rarely see like a Petit Verdot as a single varietal.
Right.
But in 2022, we decided to produce way more reds. So we contracted way more vineyards to our portfolio that grow beautiful reds. And this is a Petit Verdot from Harfman Vineyard in Osoyoos, right at the border with the United States. And when you know, during the growing season, I was just almost yelling loud in the vineyard, like, how is this possible that we are going to ripen a Petit Verdot here? And then, you know, all the way through the winemaking and aging, I was just so excited that we can bottle this wine because the Bohemian label and the Bohemian name completely underlines the character of this Petit Verdot. It's rich, it's bold, it has 15% alcohol, but you can never say that this is actually such a strong wine. Lower on sulfites as well, you know, very, very careful aging in mostly French oak, bottled unfied and unfiltered. This is by far also one of my most favorite wines I ever made in my life.
I did a good job picking out the wines. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, you picked the ones that I like the best as well, you know.
Well, you know, there's something very special about Petit Verdot, and it's the kind of wine that you open and you just keep going back to. Complex is the word I would use, and intense. Going back, you know, each time you taste it, you discover something. It's just and to Michael's point, in the winemaking story, Petit Verdot usually plays such a small role in the blends, Bordeaux blends, and I find it's starting to play a bigger and bigger role, but it brings that deep, rich violet, you know, dark blueberry kind of note to wine. And this one has that character, but it has more than that, which was the discovery. It's like, oh my goodness. So if you haven't had Pyramima Petit Verdot from Australia, which is a classic and a standard, it's been in our market for like decades. That was kind of my first discovery of Petit Verdot, but you never see it. You just never see it. And so trying this was just exceptional. And it's a great exploration. You spend an evening, make some food, just hover, like sit for a long time and just keep going back to the bottle. I totally agree with like roasted meats and stews. It's just that kind winter fireplace wine, you know.
And it's not super oaky. It's just
No,
no.
yeah. You again, the masterful art of a winemaker is to know how much.
Yes.
Oak, no oak.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of wines in the Okanagan that are over oaked, in my humble opinion. So
Unfortunately,
yeah, it masks the fruit, and then all you get is oak, and you're like, what am I supposed to be tasting here?
And the oak is getting even dominant with aging in a bottle. So then you decide to age something for 10 years, and then you open it and you smell only oak. So, but the other interesting thing about Petit Verdot is like we call it sometimes like a spice for winemaking, because you don't see many single varietal Petit Verdots because everybody is just using it as a spice for different. But this one, when it was fermented with the organic yeast, like right after fermentation, all I could smell is just the coffee, And then slowly the discovery with aging in the barrel, like how the fruit was climbing up, that was absolutely beautiful adventure for me.
I noticed here you say sage, and I was thinking there was an herbal quality to it. Sage is a great word. Do you think that's kind of a signature of the Okanagan?
Signature, especially for South Okanagan, and that's what I think happened during evolving of the wine industry here. That many winemakers wanted to suppress the sage by the oak, but I think the herbal character that the sage in each red wine is just what could stand out in compared to other wines in the world.
They say in the south of France, garrigue, their reds have this note of these cypress trees, it's just a fact, and they're not shy about it. And so we shouldn't be either, right? Like
exactly.
Yeah. Fantastic. I just thought this was a great discovery, and not expensive, in my humble opinion. I can't remember at the moment the price, but in the pack, 6-pack, 4-pack, it's actually only in the 6-pack. So order the 6-pack, people. Okay, where did my mouse go? Here we go. Let me just advance.
And the last wine is the Cabernet Franc 2020. Our first release of Cabernet Franc.
Here, see if I can advance it this way.
Oh, no problem.
Hoppala. Lila.
And so I'll keep talking.
Yeah, please. I just can't advance this slide. I can't advance this slide, darling.
Maybe you can try with arrows.
I tried with, there's the mouse. That just doesn't go over there. You do the arrow.
I don't have a Lila. Where's my Lila?
Lila, this is my Lila, and she's the most awesome Lila ever.
Can you click on the PowerPoint icon?
This one here, yes.
And now press something, scroll. Oh, here in the bottom corner.
There we go. Here we go. Thank you, darling. So that's my Lila, and she's amazing.
Hello, Lila. Thank you for your technical support.
Yes. You're welcome. She's making dinner too.
Wow.
So Cabernet Franc and the Okanagan Valley have a relationship that is blossoming, isn't it?
It's just starting, it will be a very long relationship, I hope, because one thing that is that we grow this varietal on our estate vineyard, but we also have another 2 vineyards that grow this varietal. And so 2022 was the first vintage that we started producing single varietal Cabernet Franc. This one is the blend of Deadman Lake Vineyard and Quarles Wayside Vineyard, both in Oliver, fermented with using only organic yeast, and only 10 months in oak. I think about 15% was new, so also just a right amount of oak. And we wanted to achieve with our first release a Cabernet Franc that is not too heavy, not too big, but it has to be big and heavy on the fruity flavors, because that's the first thing I want to see if I want to make wine from Southern varietal. Focus on the fruit, and then maybe by learning every year, every vintage, to try to add a little bit maybe more complexity. But with 2020 vintage, there is no need for adding more complexity with oak barrel aging. So I think we created a beautiful medium-bodied Cabernet Franc. It sold out really fast. Like we have only about maybe 20-25 cases available in a tasting room. So Barb, you again picked a wine that will be gone really soon.
And what I really liked about this was the pyrazine note. This sort of there's a green. I like to sometimes say green peppercorn, cedar, mint, pine. There's this element to it that's like stretches you, and it's just it's really quite delicious and unique. And Cab Franc doesn't always express it, but it is a part of Cab Franc. And so Cab Franc and Cabernet Sauvignon are the parents of, Cab Franc and Sauvignon Blanc are the parents of Cabernet Sauvignon, so it makes sense. But it's delicious. I'd also like the lavender, that there was a floral note. I like the spice, the licorice. Yeah, it's great.
And out of my own experience, I would like to highlight food pairing with lamb and veal. Definitely, absolutely stunning.
Yeah, there's a lot of restaurants that could benefit from wines like these too.
Yeah, Italian restaurants.
So we do have our wine offers available until Sunday, May the 7th. 6-pack includes the Q&A, 4-pack includes the Q&A, new releases, of course, and then the 2 reds that are so dynamic and delicious and unique, I think, and really speak to a winemaking art that, you bring to the story, Michael.
Thank you so much.
Also, if you are interested in the playlist that the great varieties may be listening to, you can find it on Spotify. That's I think it's called Winemaker's Cut, or maybe that's
I think we developed it together. This playlist. It's always every year is changing the playlist for my wines.
Well, yes, right. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching our PowerPoint presentation. We're now going to start the Q&A. If there are any questions, you are just welcome to unmute and speak directly to Michael. But I would like to say thank you, Michael. It was fabulous, as always.
Awesome.
And just, the pleasure that I had to go to the District Wine Village, taste the wines, and try to figure out, what would be interesting to talk about and taste, and then to receive, at home as an order. So great value, age-worthy wines and wines you drink now. I think a collection everybody needs to have for the summer. So awesome. I'm now going to stop the share. I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you everyone for joining us.